Welcome to the Heavy Spoilers Show. I'm your host Deffinition, and this is the channel where we explain it so you don't have to. The Silence has just dropped on Netflix, and this modern horror film with a twist has a lot to unpack from it. Throughout this video, I'll be breaking down everything that you need to know about the movie, the inspiration behind it, and its ending. I'm going to try my best not to mention Bird Box or A Quiet Place at all throughout this review and judge it on its own merit, but man, it's going to be difficult. Anyway, this is of course going to be filled with full spoilers on the film, so if you don't want to know anything about the movie, then I highly suggest that you turn off now. With that out the way, I hope you enjoyed the video. Now let's get into my breakdown of A Quiet Bird Box 2, The Silent... Oh crap. Right, that's the last time, I swear. Anyway, The Silence is adapted from a book of the same name by Tim Levin. This 2015 release, similar to the film, follows Ali, who lost her hearing at a young age and has had to adapt to the world around her. To make matters worse, the finding of a cave that is millions of years old is unearthed, and from it springs a wealth of monsters that prey on sound. Seeking a quiet place... Seeking a less noisy environment, the family decide to travel to Scotland as they're based in Britain, and along the way they run into people who've devolved into uncivilized heathens that wish to survive in this now lawless society. This came out way before all the other similar films and is technically the original, though overall it doesn't quite capture the same level of intensity that those movies had. Anyway, the film follows the source material quite closely, and we open with the unearthing of an uncharted cave in Pennsylvania. Vicious pterodactyls spring forth from it and completely decimate the scientists that discover the area and spring forth into the world. Due to the absence of light within the cave, the pterodactyls, or Vesps as they come to be known, have evolved to the point that they now hunt using sound, and this makes humans an easy target. These pterodactyls are absolutely ferocious and will rip the bird right out of its bird box. Oh crap, look, I'm sorry, I didn't mean that one. Please don't thumbs down the video. Anyway, it's here that we join Ali, who, similar to the source material, lost her ability to hear at a young age through a car crash that deafened her and killed some of her grandparents. Ali's father has remarked on her ability to adapt to the world around her, and the character almost has a sixth sense of awareness through having to rely on the rest of her senses. I'm kinda hoping, right, that they just keep making these horror movies that deprive the senses, so eventually, hopefully, we can get The Scent. Whoever smelt it, dealt it. Or The Silence 2. Silent but violent. Back to this movie though, there's a real sense of loss in the family, and they're very overprotective of Ali, who we see the world through the eyes of as it's slowly torn apart by attacks of the newly discovered creatures. Through the use of social media and viral videos, the family quickly discover that the silence is the only way to survive, and they decide to get as far away from the city as possible, as this is obviously where the most noise is. Now, where this differs from most other films with a similar aesthetic is that the silence shows the attacks from the point of view of random civilians. Early on, there's a scene where a mother and her crying baby get attacked on a subway after they're ousted from a train by fearful members of the public, and this sets up the notion that most people are selfish and will do whatever it takes to survive. This is confirmed on the road when Ali and her family run into a man who tries to take their car at gunpoint, but luckily, Ali's dad's best friend, Glenn, who's such a good guy that everyone calls him Uncle, shoots the man in the leg and they manage to get away. However, it's not the first run-in that they have, and it becomes apparent that humans are pretty much the polar opposite of the Vesps. Humans are stupid, listen to Boris Johnson, and will kick their grandmothers out of the car for an extra like on Facebook, whereas the Vesps move as one cohesive unit and are therefore far more deadly. This kind of plays into the ending, in which humans have to adapt to survive, and we see them sort of hunting in the same way that the Vesps do, which I'll focus on later. Anyway, when going off-road, Glenn crashes his car and becomes wedged in the vehicle. Knowing he's a goner and being such a great guy, Glenn says that he's going to shoot Ali's dad if he doesn't leave. Back at the car, the dog starts barking, and this draws the attention of the Vesps. Glenn fires his gun to draw them away, and they swarm on him. These little air piranhas quickly rip him apart, and Ali's father puts the family dog out the car because it won't stop barking. Which I got a bit annoyed about, because why didn't you take a muzzle or something? Don't kill the dog. I mean, there's this dog next door, right? And every time I try and record a video, it starts yapping away. And even though it acts like that, I still wouldn't kick it out the car. I mean, how stupid are you, Ali's dad? If you keep feeding animals, they're gonna think there's a food source in the area. Have you not seen Jaws? Anyway, due to this, the family end up having to wait it out for a couple of hours before the father decides to exit the car. Unfortunately, Ali's grandmother, who's a smoking asthmatic, suddenly gets a cough and one of the Vesps swarms in, which forces Ali's dad to make a distraction. From this, he discovers that the creatures are blind as a bat and sets fire to Glenn's car, which draws them in and then explodes, clearing most of the area. The group make it to the farm, which is when a crazy old lady with a gun comes out shouting for them to get off her land, and I guess she must only watch Fox News because she has no idea what's going on and quickly gets ripped apart by the Vesps in what's probably the most unintentionally hilarious moment of the movie. Get her! Go on, get her! Anyway, the group crawl through a tunnel in order to get to her house, which forces the father to turn on a wood chipper, and it's as badass as the old woman's death is funny. I would literally just turn that on all day and sit back and enjoy that mean old lady's delicious sandwich. This video was brought to you by Mean Old Lady Sandwiches. Eat Vesps. Anyway, as the family bunker down, it's at this point that we start to learn that religious nuts have been sacrificing atheists to Vesps as they believe that they have come to purge mankind. Due to the mother of the family being bitten badly by one of the creatures, she gets an infection and Ali and her father have to head out to get antibiotics, which is when they draw the attention of the religious people. In case you haven't worked it out already, this film is very anti-right, and the religious people can sort of be viewed as a metaphor for right-wing people attempting to silence free speech through Vesps, and thus, now that they are the main authority in the land, the family become their new target. The movie sort of highlights the dangers that come when one side of the argument manages to gain complete control, and the antagonists are representative of an oppressive force that believe they have the right to do it because they've been gifted with an apparent higher power. Whilst this metaphor works with a lot of beliefs and governments, the silence is a clear shot at the Trump administration and some of its policies. This political mind state is seen with the evolution and adapting comment made at the end by Ali, and it shows that when one side of the argument gets too powerful, the other one starts to diminish, which is when they must fight back. Anyway, before I get too bogged down in political subtext, Ali and her father, when looking for supplies, discover that the Vesps lay their offspring in the body of the dead and leave the shop, which is when they run into a character known as the Reverend. Ali and her father just want to be on their way, but you know what it's like when you're walking down the street and a religious guy stops you to tell you about his flock in the apocalypse, and Ali and her dad just end up having to leave abruptly. His flock, known as the Hushed, have resorted to cutting their tongues out in order to stay silent, and this shows their dedication to their beliefs. Now, I know I said I'd stop mentioning Bird Box, but in the book's ending, the school for the blind that the characters eventually reach was originally actually just a place full of self-inflicted blind people. So it's nice that in this film we at least get a version of something that was originally deemed too dark for the movies. The Reverend follows Ali and her father home and creepily stands outside looking at them and smiling. He tries to recruit them once again, but Ali's father politely requests to be left alone, which is when the Reverend says that what he's really come for is Ali, who is fertile. Needless to say, this isn't good news and they retreat and bide their time. What I love about these villains is that they're just so sinister and calm. A lot of the other films in the genre would probably have some overt anger towards the group, but these are almost pacifists and try to avoid fighting as much as possible. It's at this point that Ali learns from her boyfriend Rob of a safe zone up north known as the Refuge. However, in the dead of night, the Hushed attack the farm by sending in a girl strapped with mobile phones that all have alarms set on them, which causes the Vesps to swarm in. As if the iPhone alarm wasn't annoying enough already, now it's being used to murder people. Honestly though, this is where the film really ramps up, and I love seeing the phones being thrown through windows and used as weapons. This gives the Hush time to sneak in and attempt to grab Ali, which causes her grandmother to rush them and sacrifice herself in order to kill some of the attackers. The group flank the Hushed and manage to kill the majority of them, but you really get the feeling that there are no winners here, and the shot of the Vesps flying above the carnage solidifies that the Overseers still rule the world. To me, this sort of represents the people fighting it out amongst themselves, and the government let it happen as they're still in control and it doesn't affect them. We're then shown a montage of the family making their way up north, and Ali is reunited with Rob. From the ending monologue, we get the feeling that this is really a race to the top of the food chain, though this can be viewed as a race between progressives and non-progressives in society, and the ending highlights that though there are no right or wrong rulers of the planet, eventually one will be decided dependent on who adapts the most. The fact that Ali easily kills a creature creature that wanders up north, highlights that it is the humans that will most likely win, though it becomes clear that the Vesps have adapted to the environment and have even started to lay eggs there. There's an indicator that this survival of the fittest race may go on forever, but we close on a hopeful Ellie heading to tackle the problem head on. Overall, it's an ambiguous ending, and whilst the movie is a little underwhelming, I did still have a lot of fun with it. I would love to have seen this as a TV series, as crammed into just 90 minutes, it feels a little underdeveloped. This feels like a first chapter where down the road there would be potential for a lot more. Still, the movie was fun, and whilst it's getting slated online, I did still enjoy it. Overall, The Silence for me gets a 6 out of 10. Obviously, I'd love to hear your thoughts on the film and if you took anything differently from it. Comment below and let me know, and if you enjoyed this breakdown then make sure you check out my latest video on everything we know so far about Avengers Endgame, which will be linked at the end. This is a channel for people who are mad into movies, so if that's the kind of thing you like, hit subscribe. Thanks again for taking the time to watch this. I've been Deffinition, you've been the best, and I'll see you next time. Take care, peace.